The Ascended Lady Master Leto is the teacher of children. In her own words, she says, I am a teacher of youth of every age. I taught Rexanata and Bob and Pearl, and I come to welcome you to the Cave of Light, retreat of the Great Divine Director in India. So here are activities for acceleration of candidates for the Ascension. I especially work with children and youth who desire to give this lifetime to that path and to an extraordinary service to America, to Saint Germain. The color of violets, when meditated upon, will draw you nearer to the violet heart, the purple heart that I carry in the name of Saint Germain. Leto was a scientist on Atlantis. She was also a mystic in China, where she devoted her energies to the precipitation of the flame of truth. She also teaches us how to consciously leave our body and return at will, and how to draw upon our experiences in the retreats at night when we sleep. So you can call on her to learn these particular disciplines. Her twin flame is the Ascended Master Alexander Gaylord, who recently ascended in 1937. In the book, The Magic Presence, you can read how Alexander Gaylord, while yet in embodiment and working for the Brotherhood, went on missions with Leto, who had ascended more than 300 years earlier. Gaylord was also active in the Cosmic Secret Service. Leto and Alexander Gaylord embodied together in the Inca civilization in the early 1500s. He was a public servant and she was a scientist, and they both were highly attuned to the masters. Now, I don't know how much you know about the Inca civilization, but it is a very interesting study. The Inca civilization flourished in ancient Peru between 1400 and 1533. That's just a mere 500 plus years ago. Their empire eventually extended across Western South America and to the north, Quito in Ecuador, right near us, a couple hours away, and all the way south to Santiago, Chile. It was, and it is, the largest empire ever seen in the Americas. And at that time, it was the largest empire in the world. Now, when you visit Peru, Machu Picchu, Cusco, the Sacred Valley, which I've had the pleasure of doing twice now, you see the remnants from this great civilization and what they accomplished in just a mere 100 years. It's amazing. In fact, it's phenomenal. Their incredible architectural feats and the knowledge of the universe that they displayed in their culture, which is another whole discussion, definitely makes you think that they were not only very in tune with the Brotherhood, but they had developed higher powers. Also, they had the mastery, well, they have had to have had the mastery of levitation. When you see what they created without all of the technology we have today. And the amazing thing is, even our the architectural feats that they have, even our modern technology cannot duplicate to this day. So it's amazing to really experience being there, and I would recommend it to anyone if you ever have the opportunity to travel there. Now, during that embodiment, Leto rendered a great assistance to mankind, and especially, get this, during periods of plague. She did this by drawing upon the healing centers of the earth. So we can look to Leto most definitely to help us through this COVID experience that we've been experiencing on this planet. It's very fascinating to know that Leto and Alexander Gaylord lived in this period and embodied at that time. And some of us may very well have been there also in that Inca civilization. Leto currently serves with her twin flame, Alexander Gaylord, who is the master of Paris in their etheric retreat, which is over the Isle de la Cite, which is the island of the Seine in the very heart of Paris and is considered the birthplace of France. She currently conducts scientific experiments and teaches the law of alchemy to a select group of students. The Master of Paris also maintains a physical focus in the city of Paris, right in the center. And it's one of the few physical focuses of the Brotherhood that remain on the planet. And we've been told that Gaylord would often visit this retreat in the physical form. Archangel Zadkiel explained the purpose of the retreat in the very heart of the city. He said, the single-eyed purpose of keeping the flame of the seventh ray and using it with Christ's discrimination to aid the blessed servants of God in embodiment, that's us, who endeavor to bring about world good, to infuse then their work, the work of their hands or their inventions or their art or their pure love for humanity, with a portion of that permanence that comes out of the cycles of the violet flame. So this retreat is really a great support to us, a great support to the light bearers on the planet. And we may wish to choose to frequent this retreat as we sleep, maybe someday in the physical. According to the masters, anyone could be invited to this retreat as an initiate. No one is barred. We can go there physically, but in reality, we bar ourselves because you have to have a certain level of consciousness before you can enter the retreat, a certain attainment. So now that we have learned a little bit about Leto's background in these embodiments, her is being a scientist on Atlantis and how she's currently teaching science and alchemy, let us turn to her dictation, Becoming the Christos, the Path of Science, which was dictated on April 15th, 1976 during the Path to Attainment Conference in Los Angeles. We begin where she is saying, we desire to see men and women of science endow mater, or matter, with the flame of the spirit. And then you will see fulfilled in this age the raising of the culture and science that was the mother flame of Mu, whereby the children of Mu conquered the elements of matter to achieve a science and a religion far beyond that which is known today. She says, we have need of those who see the path of Christhood as one of experiment. Have you ever thought of the path of Christhood as an experiment? But she says, see that path of Christhood as an experiment with the energies of self as on the path of Raja Yoga, the path that is the integration of all the yogas that mankind have known and all of the asanas, all of the meditations. It is the integration of the God flame, the flame of spirit within the crucible of matter. And if you're not familiar with Raja Yoga, as she said, it's a compilation of all of the yogas. And the Hatha Yoga that is so practiced prevalently in the Western culture, it's really designed to develop the discipline of the physical body, the four lower bodies, so that one can then meditate with the Raja Yoga and reunite with their higher self. That is the purpose of Raja Yoga. She says, you are co-creators with the great alchemist of life, and therefore it is ordained by the flame within you that you should endow life with spirit. She asked that question, how do you endow life with a flame? Why, the same way in which you give joy and flow and laughter and love here below. Have you not seen your joy catch as a flame across the faces of children and loved ones? Just as you have seen your sorrow, your darkness, and your gloom and your madness bring that cataclysm of sorrow to your loved ones. So basically, we are endowing life with either with spirit or misused energy. It's our everyday expressions in which we use God's energy. It's not really all that complicated of a formula. So she says, and so you are already a scientist in the laboratory of life, and you're quite familiar with the uses of energy and manipulation and control, both by yourself and upon yourself. And you are aware that a certain combination of elements within your being can produce the very same results each time they are combined. This is science. It is the science of the inner man becoming the manifestation of God. I desire that you should prove the way of the Christ and the Buddha scientifically, for it is the law. It can be demonstrated. It's physics, it's chemistry, it's psychology. It's beyond the senses and yet provable. It is intangible, yet tangible. What does that mean? It's intangible, yet tangible. Well, she's talking about every aspect of ourself. The I am presence, the Christ self that infuses matter is intangible. We don't see that. And yet here we are infused with the mighty I am presence, the God energy, and have the power to infuse all of matter with that spirit. That is the tangible. So it's intangible yet tangible. To be scientists along the way of that royal road of reintegration, the action of the eighth ray of the Buddha must be employed. For it is an integration of the flow of energies from spirit to matter. And as spirit enters matter, it gives matter the impetus to rise back to spirit. And therefore, movement is the key to the inner science. We are an integrated being, that mighty figure eight flow from the I am presence through our Christ self to our soul, all one integration. Experiment then with all the aspects of the crystallization of the God flame and study the components of the crystal. Now, this is very interesting that she's going to go into this. Take the microscope, she says, and look into matter and see its components, and then determine the structure of those components at molecular and atomic sublevels, and see how matter was created to be the cradle of a flame, the cradle of a flame, the chalice that holds the flame. Matter is the cradle. God, the Holy Spirit, the living Christ, the mighty I am, is the flame. See then, as you look under a microscope at the cell, at the crystal, how you can visualize within that which is revealed as invisible. So what is she saying? She's saying when you look at the microscope and you look down to the molecular and the cellular level, you are looking at that which is being revealed as invisible. And then she says, see how you can project by the vision of the emerald ray a flame. First, as a picture of a flame. Just think of a picture of an emerald flame right now, two-dimensional picture. First as a picture of the flame that you see in your mind's eye, and then as the vision of the flame. What's the difference? The vision of the flame is three-dimensional. It is alive, it is moving, it is the fire of God. It's more than just a picture. Visualize the vision of the flame taking on the qualities of warmth and love from your heart, the outline of the will of God, the flow of wisdom, and the aspects of the seventh ray that you feel in your soul as purity, as transmutation, and as ministration to life. That is endowing the flame. Show your children with the joy and the excitement of discovery of the invisible words of matter that matter is certainly theirs to conquer. Show them how crystals are formed of salt and of sugar. Show them how crystals form and how within the crystal is the opportunity for the God flame. Show them how the flame makes permanent the creation, man, how within the soul the endowment of the flame gives wholeness to life and being, so that you will not inherit the shell of a mechanization concept and of a way of life that is mechanical, robot-like, following after the Martians in their misuse of the mother flame, following after so many who have conquered the vast reaches of space, but who have failed to endow that hallowed space with the flame of God self-awareness. This whole thing reminds me of when I was a freshman in college. I was in a physiology class, and the professor was talking about, can man create life? And I thought about that. And of course, I didn't have the vernacular or anything of the teachings, but I said, no, not really. He said, but they actually are creating life in a test tube. And I said, yes, but it's the components of life, but it lacks the spirit. So it's not life as we know it. It was a great awareness to start with, to start my spiritual path. So Leto says they trample. Now she's talking about the Martians and having this mechanical robot-like life that is not really endowed with the flame. She said they trample upon the virgin territory of Mater with their profanity and their vanity and their carnal mindedness. They have not the flame of the mother, for they have subjugated that flame to a material science. And when I say they, I speak of many evolutions of other worlds and system of worlds who are all around you, observing your evolution, coming in their spaceships and with their extravaganza of their science that makes mankind look like primitives on the cosmic highway. And yet, listen to this, she says, we smile as we see their consternation when they observe the chelas of the sacred fire invoking the flame that changes mater, that transmutes energy. For they have the ability to see the effects of invocations upon the consciousness of those who follow the path of the ascended masters. And therefore, they have made of the chelas a laboratory of study and observation. So that's a new dimension to consider. And she says, well, I say the bird that is watching you can also be watched by you. And you can observe the goings and comings of these objects of interplanetary travel. And you can remind yourself that the great yogi of Tibet, Milarepa, did not require a spaceship to journey through the skies, nor do the ascended masters, or quite a number of their unascended chelas. And therefore, in your science and in your proof of the law that is truth, prefer then the way of the yogi and learn to levitate by the inner science. Is this so impossible? Is anything impossible with God or science? Nothing is impossible, but you must submit the totality of your consciousness and your energy. You must pursue the raising of the light of the chakras. You must realize that these discs of light whirling within you are given to you for a purpose, a cosmic purpose. And what was the chariot of fire into which Elijah rose? Was it a spaceship? I say no. It was the great chakra of the causal body of Elijah spinning to receive him in the cycling of energy in the ritual of the ascension. And yet, those who see only materialistic science would interpret all activities of the scientists of the spirit in terms that they understand. And this is understandable. But though we understand, must we submit? Must we relinquish terror to the hands of the mad scientists who are not concerned with the dangers of their experimentations with nuclear energy, with the pollutions of the atmosphere and the earth, and all the poisons of chemicals that they inflict upon the bodies of the children of light, as well as the children of darkness? I say no. We could also ask about the development of deadly viruses. Think COVID-19, anyone? We shall not relinquish terror as long as you will take your stand and refuse to relinquish terror. You are the authority. You are the scientist. God sent you forth as scientists to take dominion over the earth, to subdue the earth, which means to take dominion in the planes of matter, to control the energies of matter, to demonstrate the laws of alchemy. Jesus was obedient to that code and to that mandate, but you have been convinced by the fallen ones that it can only be done through a material science. I say, make matter the instrument of your God flame and see what inventions and discoveries and creative concepts you will bring forth. For the lords of karma have told me to tell you that there are opportunities for the advancement of culture into the age of Aquarius for those who will become spiritual scientists, pursuing the conquest of time and space and the planes of consciousness. And therefore, while you advance your knowledge of current science, remember to go within to the fire in the core of atom of being and to meditate with Christ and with Buddha on the holding of the lines of force of energy. So yes, you may pursue the conquest of time and space and traditional science, but just remember what it means to go within to that flame of the Christ. Now, there is something that you can do, whether you have the inclination toward the material sciences or not. So you may be thinking, I'm not a scientist, I have no desire to study science. Well, she addresses that. She says, now there's something you can do. And then she says, and that is the scientific use of the third eye as the point of visualization for the expansion of your self-awareness. You have been told by Lanello and by the masters of the Brotherhood to meditate upon the crystal and its structure. Now I ask you, those who have neglected to do so because you do not have the books, well, go to your libraries and select images of crystals, and then to diagram the molecular structure of crystals and begin to memorize these structures and to endow them with the flame and to realize that your altar is the place of change. Your altar is a place where the sacred fire burns so that the alteration of consciousness, which we call transmutation, may take place in the crucible of your own matrix. Now we could just go to the internet and look for a molecular structure of a crystal. We don't have to even go to the library, so it's even easier. But this is something we may want to consider doing, whether you are a scientist or not, to actually do this, because this is foundational to alchemy and the alchemical principles that Saint Germain teaches. She says, and therefore consider that the crystal, especially of rare gems and their molecular structure, and then she says, I meditate now with you upon the structure of the emerald, is a means of contacting the plane of spirit. For these emanations of the mind of God that are manifest in spirit are parallel to the energies manifest. Now let me correct that. For these emanations of the mind of God that are manifest in matter are parallel to the energies manifest in spirit. They are time-space coordinates for the coalescing of energy in infinity. If you can therefore meditate upon this and endow your meditation with the flaming fire, this is what will take place. You will trace from effect to cause to first cause the very components of creation. And if you will study the treatise on alchemy by beloved Saint Germain, you will find that your visualizations will bring into manifestation elements of Christ consciousness, of abundance, of the ability to expand a mandala of the community, the Holy Spirit. You will find that the subduing of the earth will come to you because your mind has entered into the very causal relationship of the flow of energy from the fiery core of the atom to the periphery of the manifestation of the electrons. You will see then that matter that is alive with the flame of the Spirit is matter that is in motion. It is energy in motion. It is energy ascending and descending from the very throne of God. And when the great prophets of the Old Testament described their visions of angels ascending and descending on the ladder of life and the appearance of all manner of manifestations, they were exploring microcosmic and macrocosmic worlds. They were in contact with the very elements of matter flowing into the elements of spirit. And they perceived angels as the personification of the angles of God's consciousness in these particles of precious substance that you take so for granted. Now, this is a very profound statement that she makes. She says, to us who are ascended, we consider matter as sacred. Consider that. Think about that. All of matter as sacred. She says, we do not remove our shoes merely in the presence of the direct manifestation of the God flame. We remove our shoes in hallowed space, in hallowed time, in the hallowed presence of Mother as matter, as the counterpart of the Divine Father. So think about that. Do we hallow space? All of space? Yes, we bless our homes, we have our altars, but do we hallow all of space, all of matter around us as we walk down the street? Are we hallowing, which means making holy, consecrating it, putting the flame in every aspect of our life, elemental life, our pets, our computers, everything? It's all matter. Do we infuse it? Do we hallow it? Or do we just go about the mundane human life? This is really something that we can shift our consciousness right here and now about, thinking of ourselves as going forth, that every part of matter is sacred and we can hallow it and infuse it with the flame of life. She says, until you would know and see and visualize the alterations of energy, flow, and molecules, you will not have the matrices of consciousness to be true alchemists of the spirit. And until you become alchemists of the sacred fire, you will not be scientists in matter that we would raise up for the golden age. We are ready to receive into embodiment the avatars who come as the great scientists of the new age. They must be trained in this science of visualization. They must know the freedom without hindrance from false belief or superstition. They must know from birth unquestioningly that God created them to endow life with the flame that is God. And therefore, the avatars must be surrounded with a naturalness of moving in and out of planes of consciousness, so natural to evolution's advanced in other systems of the world, other systems of worlds. They must not learn the superstitions of current science, which are mental stumbling blocks. They must study the words of the truly great ones who have graced the field. Never let it be known that some among you can quicken a flame of science that you have not known before. And that quickening is for the magnetization of these little ones. Some of you have stayed away from science because of its coldness and because of the errors involved in the many truths that have been brought forth. Some of you have feared this science simply because you have seen what the fallen priests of Lemurian Atlantis have performed through their misuse of science, through their misuse of the mother flame. You have seen atomic holocaust. You have seen the explosion of planets and their destruction by the misuse of this energy. And therefore, although true scientists of the spirit, she's talking about us, you have pursued the polarity, the polar opposite of this science in the way of religion. And then you have encountered the superstitions of this world's religions, and you have failed to see that the Master of Galilee was the master scientist of his age. Truly, in him was fulfilled our dream of the fusion of science and religion. So, is that maybe true of you or me or many of us who are in the Master's teachings? Have we swung from not wanting to know anything about the science of God's religion, but only the religion, and then get caught up in the religions of the day? Very interesting to contemplate. Now then, she says, we are at the crossroads, as many planets have been at crossroads, to see whether the Earth will go the way of mechanization and materialism, conquering without the flame, or whether her evolutions will pursue the Raja Yoga of integration. And we can see that America and this planet truly is facing this decision. I am counting on you, she says, Chelas of the Masters, to become more scientific in your application of the law and far less superstitious. The teachings of the Masters have no superstition, and yet you make of them a superstition, as though you live in primitive times and places. Let us then, with equanimity, with the certainty of the word that we have been given, apply without fear, without division, each law that we have been given. Let us apply it with scientific certitude that the law always works when it is correctly applied, that the call always compels the answer when the call reaches the level of a God flame. Let us not superstitiously give our decrees as rote, but let us give them as scientists with total concentration, total oneness, using the faculties God given to expand the greater faculties within that are waiting to be tapped. So even if we can't do this perfectly now, she's saying we have those faculties within us. We just have to tap them. Not always easy to do a decree totally concentrating, totally focused, but we can do it. Let us use the cycles of the cosmic clock with diligence, with discipline. There is so much more of the science of Christhood that each and every one of you could be manifesting with just the law that you know. And if you would give that manifestation of application, you would find that we would run to deliver to you at your very doorstep the next step of advanced teachings in the initiation of science. So let us rise from the mire. Let us be cleansed of the mire of a dogma and a doctrine that is left over from the age of ignorance, where there was no enlightenment, but only bondage to form. Let us remove mechanization from the church and from the laboratory of the church, which is the altar of the sacred fire. Let us see then how swiftly we can advance this age of Aquarius and spare mankind the Holocaust, the cataclysm, the personal debacle. Let us see how we can spare souls the rumbling and tumbling of the boulders of karma that crush even the very life manifestation. By science, let us anticipate the returning cycles and let them be placed upon the altar. Let them be turned over to the great alchemist, your own Christ self. There is no need to live in a religion by belief or by blind faith when you have scientific proof of that religion. There is no need to teach a teaching of blind belief, preying on men's fears and anxieties, when Christ is tangibly here and now, the victor over death and darkness and despair. You have no need to grovel on the ground, imploring that intercession, which is a flame upon the altar of your heart that is already burning brightly, that is manifesting the power of the word and the logos. If you will but calmly make the call and draw the design of wholeness, a sphere of light, including the aspects of your alchemy and your precipitation. Now she gives us some interesting advice. She says, let us not go before the wishing well of the I Am presence and make our wishes. Let us approach the altar of the Most High God and the I Am that I am as able to fill the perfect blueprint of the mind of Christ when we hold to that blueprint within. In other words, let us approach the mighty I Am in the flame of the living Christ, one with our holy Christ self, not groveling and not approaching it without just making our wishes. Therefore, whether it is wishing or willing, put aside your witchcraft and your tampering with the energies of God by a decadent religious form. This is the path of initiation. This is the path of attainment for sons and daughters of God, sure-footed, certain of knowledge, who know that they know the law, who know that the law applied will always result in the manifestation. Let us take a new look at the teaching and let us bring forth the science of the golden age. Thereby all can prove the law by application. So let us take a new look at the teaching. Have we been falling into superstitious concepts? Or are we able to draw forth, know who we are? We were made in the image and likeness of God. We heard the scripture. And that Holy Christ self, that is the mediator. You know, the I Am presence cannot perceive anything in this dimension, never even a speck of imperfection, or the whole universe would collapse. It is the Christ who is the mediator, the Christ who is one with the I Am, but can perceive the unrealities and the realities in this dimension. This was Jesus. He was always one with his Father, but he could deal with those things in this level, in the human, physical level. And this is what we too are called to do. Prove the law by application. And then let none dare come to our altar and say, show me proof so that I may believe your teaching. Let them come to their own laboratory and make their own experiment with the law of life. Let them prove as you have proven. Let your own life be the witness of this science. Let others want to demonstrate it. Let it become one of those popular games that everyone runs to secure. Let it be the game of life. Let it be played according to the rules of the science of life, and let it be won by honor, truth, integrity, and freedom. I am Leto, calling you to the path of Christhood by the way of science. I thank you. And what do we take from this amazing message? Incredible message from our beloved Leto. Remember, get a picture of the molecular structure of a crystal, memorize it, and visualize within it and endow it with that flame. This is one of the things that she has asked us to do. And then we can also take from this, we can consider matter as sacred, all of matter. This we can do right this moment to make the decision to shift our consciousness to becoming the one that literally, tangibly endows matter, space, time, physical things with the flame of God. And then we can approach the I Am presence, not as a wishing well, but with the ability to fill that perfect blueprint of the mind of Christ that's within our own Christ self, understanding who we really are, scientists of the Spirit. And so we bring that perfect blueprint to the mighty I Am presence to fill, rather than, once again, just as a wishing well. We bring the matrix, of what we want to create. We are scientists of the Spirit. And then we can take a new look at the teaching, where we are the ones to bring forth the science of the golden age by proving the law by application. Are you willing to take this teaching and become it and express it and be the scientist of spirit? Beloved Lito, we are so ever grateful for this magnificent message that transforms our lives. And we can make the decisions to shift our consciousness and to do the things that you have suggested, that we might manifest the living Christ. We may walk and be and follow as Jesus did, one with the Father, but also the living Christ in the flesh and manifesting God's holy will, his kingdom on earth. We are grateful forever for your presence with us, and we thank you in the name of the Father, the Mother, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen.